So hello everyone, I want to welcome you to today's episode of Uniquely You TV. And today we have a very, very special guest. This is Darcy, known as Darcy the dietitian, which is an endearing term to me. But anyway, hi Darcy.
Hi there, Deborah.
Anyway, I met Darcy because you'll notice that there's an abundance of nutritional information out there. You can watch TV shows, you can search on the web, you can read books. There is a magnitude of information on what to eat. But still, we have this epidemic of people eating way too much and reaching unhealthy weights and not being able to reach their goals. And so Darcy has a very, very unique way of working with people that I think really needs to be shared.
Well, thank you. I would tend to agree, just because there is such an overabundance of information that eventually it becomes confusing as to what we need to do, what's right for me, what works for me. And a lot of people find that they don't really know what works for them because they keep investing themselves in a certain area of nutrition and a certain theory. But without becoming the expert of your own body, you're really unsure which one is right for you. So I absolutely agree with you on that. And I know you are a huge proponent of individual treatment, and that's wonderful. And it really needs to be done that way because there is no one-size-fits-all solution.
So anyway, the other thing, Darcy does this amazing intake sheet where she asks you all these questions. And I told somebody my experience of Darcy, it is like she takes there and you've got this outer world, and this is where all the knowledge and information is. And then there's an inner world. And in this inner world, and kind of like a brain psychology, is what makes you tick. And a lot of times when people do diets and they try different programs to become healthy, they become discouraged and it actually starts to affect their self-esteem. But that's because they don't have an understanding of what is inside in their neuropsychology that's making them tick. And Darcy opens up your inner world for you to look at in a way that's non-judgmental, loving, compassionate, and caring, so you can discover and become a master of your own self so that you can be successful. It doesn't have to do with whether a program works for you. We have to find how you can work for you.
That is absolutely right. I think that sometimes we get into a place of doubt, self-doubt, shame, guilt about some of the things that we've tried that maybe haven't worked. And we tend to look inward and tend to blame that on ourselves as opposed to looking at the different components about what has worked and what hasn't worked so that we can tailor that to you as the individual. And it really is about becoming the expert of you, both internally and externally. So it always has to start with awareness first. If you're not aware, if you are not conscious, there's absolutely nothing that you can do to change your behavior, to change your actions. And if you can't change your actions, then there's no way that you are going to change the outcome. So if you find yourself stuck in a loop over and over and over again, a lot of people call this pattern yo-yo dieting. If you have found yourself gaining and losing the same 10, 20, 30, maybe even 50 or 100 pounds over and over again, you may find yourself stuck in that loop. Something will work for a while, and then something goes wrong. Either it becomes not sustainable or you have a slip of some kind, and that's where it really takes you down internally, is when you start to blame yourself for that process instead of doing some problem solving about that. So I like to look at the difference between taking responsibility for your actions versus blaming yourself for the things that go wrong. And there's a huge difference between those two. So blaming yourself is all about that guilt, that shame, that beating yourself up for not doing it right, versus the taking responsibility, which is looking at what maybe went wrong, doing what's called a chain analysis, looking at all the events that led up to it, seeing it with a clear view, and then doing some problem solving so that you don't have to get tripped up over and over and over again. You become the author of your life. You get to be in charge as opposed to the blaming, which just leads to a downward spiral.
So anyway, and that was really an amazing experience because I actually worked with Darcy myself, and she just gently guides you in such a loving way that you get to see things from a whole new perspective, and you go, wow, I didn't know that about myself. And you go, well, that makes sense. That makes total sense. And so, that's a way different space to live in than the blame and the guilt and the shame and all of those emotions that just drag you down and just make you to where you don't even want to get out of bed in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So
it can feel very hopeless at times when you get into that spiral. It can feel like the problem is you. And truth be told, there is some internal tweaking that needs to be done there. But it has absolutely nothing to do with your character as a person, your value as a person, or even the self-discipline that a lot of people talk about. I hear so much about, oh, I just don't have self-control, or oh, I'm lazy. And that is also a part of that spiral that takes you down. Because when you're attacking anyone, if you're attacking someone else or if you're attacking yourself and being self-critical, there is absolutely no way to feel good about yourself. It becomes a double whammy, in fact. You're not only receiving that criticism from yourself, but you're also giving that criticism. And when you're unkind to someone, it never feels good. You are never going to feel better. You are never going to feel empowered. You are never going to feel in charge, either when you are receiving criticism or giving criticism. So it's very important to be aware of that internal process as it's happening.
So, and not that Darcy doesn't cover the nutrition part, because she has 2 degrees. One was in the neuroscience and one was in the nutrition. So she can help you tweak the foods that are going to work for you too. Mm-hmm. So that's another part of it.
Yes, I did study neuroscience at University of Texas at Dallas, and that was some of the most enlightening information I've ever come across in my education. But I also did go on to receive my degree in clinical nutrition from UT Southwestern Medical Center, and that is the food component of it. So I always talk about the food knowledge. We need to have a basis of information that we can start from. There are absolute truths when it comes to food. One of those truths involves the fact that if you are heavily relying on processed foods, if you find yourself always going out to eat a lot or eating a lot of foods that come in packages, then the fact of the matter is your body may not be receiving all the nutrition that it needs. And because of that, you may find yourself getting hungry because your body is saying, I just need more nutrients. When our bodies get hungry, it doesn't just mean that it needs calories. It also means I need vitamins, I need minerals, I need all those phytonutrients and all of those things we don't even have names for yet when it comes to food. There are so many wonderful properties about food, and it's important to have that information. So what we know across the board is that the less processed foods that we have, the better. But within even the whole foods that we get, each individual is different, as you already touched on. So for some people, meat might be the best, most healthy way to eat. Some people incorporating dairy is the most satisfying and fulfilling way for them to eat. And for some people, having those things out of their diet and their intake is sometimes the best way for that individual to work. So it is a process of learning about yourself and about how your body works.
I really like that, Darcy, because if you sit there and you go, okay, well, I tried this program and I tried this program and it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start thinking, okay, well, it's me, and it's not you. That's the most important message there. And it gets overwhelming because I don't know, life is speeding up, and there's so many different stressors and so many things to deal with, and a lot of times we don't have the time to sit down, slow down, really pay attention to what's going on. What foods make us feel better, what foods don't, what information out there is tailored to me. And so in working with someone like Darcy, where you have them being the coach, sitting there helping you pay attention until you tweak something that really works for you, it makes all the difference in the world.
Mm-hmm. And I'd like to ask you a question, actually. When you think of unhealthy weight loss, what comes to your mind?
What comes to mind is my son going, "Mommy, you can't go on a diet because diet has the word die in it. And if you diet, you're going to die." That's really what comes to mind.
I always say diet is just die with a T.
Die with a T. And so I have to laugh because at my young son, that's what he says every time when I mention the word diet. You cannot be on a diet. Well, I said, I'm not on a diet. I'm on a nutrition program.
So sometimes there's a difference between a diet and a food strategy.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
And sometimes if it's just a diet, you go on a diet, you go off a diet. But a food strategy might be more of a lifestyle change, something that you want to do long term.
Yes, and something that works. And one of the things that I had to work with Darcy and myself with is the difference between deprivation and, feeling that, you have to have food as medicine and you lose the pleasure out of it. So she helped me work with that one strategy for me, which may be different for each of you, but I was grateful for that.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes we approach food as from only one perspective. Either we're only using it for stress relief, or we're only using it for pleasure, or we're only looking at it from a calorie standpoint or a nutrition standpoint. But the fact of the matter is, food isn't just for one purpose. It's for pleasure and for satisfaction, and it's also for the nutrients and the fuel that our bodies need. So we need to have both components in order for food to really be satisfying and fulfilling in our lives. So the reason that I asked you about the unhealthy weight loss, I know a lot of people talk about, unhealthy weight loss is like a fad diet. Okay. It's something that causes you maybe to lose a lot of weight quickly or lose muscle mass. And that's true. And there's also short-term weight loss. So when I say short-term weight loss, what does that make you think of?
It's like when you go on a really strict calorie restricted diet, mm-hmm. because you have like a wedding or something and you want to look good for the wedding. And so you restrict your calories and you exercise or whatever you need to do to get that weight off for that wedding. As soon as that wedding's over, back to your old ways.
Mm-hmm. So it could be that the two might overlap. So it could be unhealthy weight loss and it could be short-term weight loss. I think that's what a lot of people think of, are the two kind of being the same. But the fact of the matter is, you can have a healthy plan and it still might be short-term. You might still follow that plan for a short time. Let's say it even works for you. Let's say that you have the information that you need to do what works for your body. But sometimes there's an internal process that stops us from continuing to follow that. So I like to say that there are keys to long-term weight loss. There's a secret to not only finding out what works for you, but also following it long-term. So the keys to that, it can't be a size of one-size-fits-all rules.
Okay, that makes sense.
It has to be tailored to you. And it has to be that you, as the individual, as the expert of your own body, is in the driver's seat. Because if me as the coach is being the driver of it, if I'm being the one who's in the parent role and saying this is good and this is bad, it only sets the stage for rebellion. So it really has to be an internal process that comes out, and sometimes it has to be drawn out, because a lot of people come in wanting someone else to be in the driver's seat. because maybe they have a voice inside that says, you know what, you cannot be trusted. Sometimes our voice tells us that, and that is the self-critical voice. But that is not the truth. The truth is that you are the expert of your own body, and your internal wisdom can be trusted. It's just a matter of tapping into that so that that information can be used to help you instead of used for that shame spiral we talked about a little bit earlier. There are some other components that make long-term weight loss long-term as opposed to short-term. And one of those is making sure that you're building up your skill level, building it up. Because the process of learning how to take care of yourself is not a light switch moment. It's not one day it's off, the next day it's on. It's about taking that next right step for you, finding out what is the next right step, trying out some different methods, doing some experiments. And when you do that, you start to build your skill in different areas so that it's not just a rigid plan, that you can have some flexibility within that and know that you're going to be okay.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So is there a take-home message that you would like the audience to know?
There absolutely is. And that is to be kind to yourself. If you are constantly being self-critical, and trust me, we have those voices inside all of us, that self-criticism. But the key is to really tap into your self-kindness, self-compassion, and to think about being a friend to yourself first. Often we are the hardest on ourselves, but we can also be the greatest friend to ourselves. So if you're struggling, if you're having a hard time, and your friend came to you and said, you know what, I'm really struggling in this area or that area, would you say to that friend, well, you just need some self-control. You just need some willpower. No, you wouldn't say that to your friend. You would say, you know what, maybe there are some things that we can do to help with that. How can I support you? How can I make this easier for you? And that's the kind of message that we need to start giving to ourselves, to be a friend. Not to make excuses for them. Sometimes we make excuses for our friends. We say, oh, it's just because of this or because of that. But to be a true friend, which means looking at the situation, doing some problem solving, and then forming a new path.
Darcy, that's great wisdom. I think that is an incredible way to send them with a take-home message. So until next time, be kind to yourself.